Good morning, Chicago, and welcome to Echoing God's Word, the radio program sponsored by the Office for Catechesis and Youth Ministry. I am Amanda Thompson.
And I am Javier Castillo.
And we are your host for a very exciting program on Lent. The Lenten season has begun. And today we have two fantastic guests. We have Bishop Alberto Rojas, the Episcopal Vicar for Vicariate 3, and Clare Poupard, the Director of Religious Education at St. Paul the Apostle in Gurnee. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us.
And Bishop, we would like to even hear from you. If you can tell us a little bit more about yourself, especially, some people, they even still thinking, who's Bishop Rojas? Or maybe some people in the parishes, they are even saying that we want Bishop Rojas in our parish. So it's going to be better even you can tell us a little bit more about yourself, even your day of ordination as a bishop, and for how long have you been in the Archdiocese of Chicago?
Okay. Been so new, I don't know. I don't have a lot to tell you of who I am. I guess more than saying who I am, probably focus more on what I do. But I think some people do know me for the almost a year and a half that I've been ordained a bishop. So I was a priest for the Archdiocese of Chicago for 14 years. So I was ordained in 1997 by Francis Cardinal George. So I was a pastor an associate pastor of a parish for 5 years, and then I was invited to work in the formation faculty at Mundelein Seminary. And I was there for about 8 years. And then the cardinal asked me to take a parish as a pastor. This is almost 2 years now. And I was a pastor of the parish of Good Shepherd in Little Village for about a year. And then after that, towards the end of the year, then I was named a bishop, which was the shock of my life.
Wow, they snatched you right up.
So it's been about a year and a half now that I was ordained a bishop, and I'm still learning what this is about and how I can serve better. I have seen this as a call from God to serve in a different way. And the cardinal himself, when I had this interview with him, he said, it's just a different way of serving. And he's right. It's a different way of serving. It's a little more responsibility, but at the same time, the same joy, the same call to continue, God's message around the world or around myself. So it's been a good experience. I was ordained a bishop in August 10, 2011.
Wonderful. Well, it's such a gift to have such a wonderful man in that position. So thank you for sharing your gifts in that way with the Archdiocese.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And it's great to have you with us this morning. And we also have Clare. Clare, you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. I love that your program is called Echoing God's Word because really I self-identify as a catechist. And I'm sure you all know catechist means to echo God's Word. I began volunteering in my home parish as a catechist when my son was a baby. He's now 20. Oh. And kind of just loved it and was fortunate enough to be able to go to school. My parish helped me, and I graduated from Loyola University in Chicago and have been a DRE since then. For the last 6 years, I've been at St. Paul the Apostle in Gurnee. It's a wonderful, large faith community. I've learned from them about prayer and service. They're wonderful. We have 1,400 students in the religious education program. That's for 12th grade. Yes, we're huge. And it's not just me. We have a staff with our kindergarten through 5th grade coordinator, Amy Russell, 6th through 8th grade coordinator, Laura Oslovich, our youth minister and pastoral associate, Michelle Schaefer, and our administrative coordinator, Carla Pearson. And between us, we kind of cover the waterfront in kindergarten through 12th grade. All types of learning, and I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into our Lenten programs, because we believe the whole faith is caught, not taught, and that's what we try to live at St. Paul's.
We're very excited to have you, both of you, with us, and let us get started with Bishop Rojas. Tell us about the Lent and the Lenten retreat for catechists and parish ministers, and with the theme of Our Faith is Strengthened in the Desert, especially, Bishop, those days the people even is having struggling even how to live their Catholic faith in those days, and especially the culture of how the bishops even at synod they used to call it the globalization and secularization. How our people they can be living, especially in those strong seasons in the Catholic Church.
Okay. Well, I think every time we have this opportunity, of Lent, all the liturgical seasons around the year, the liturgical year, are wonderful opportunities for all of us to get closer to God. And every retreat has about the same purpose: to get closer to God, to get away from darkness, to get away from evil, to get away from things that are not who we are meant to be. So this time, I've done a few retreats in the past for different groups. As when I was a priest. This time as a bishop, I feel a little more probably. I'm not sure if intrigued or committed to speak a little more boldly of what we are or who we are to be as Christian, as human beings. And so in this retreat for Lent, I think the focus is to get back to who we are, or who we were meant to be from the very beginning. So I'm gonna focus a little bit on thinking of Adam and Eve, for example, and how from the very beginning they were created holy. There was no sin in them, so sin wasn't part of who we were or meant to be from the beginning. So I'm going to start explaining a little bit how it happened from the very beginning, what happened in the process, how devil then came into the picture, and how we have been stained by his interference of evil, and what we are to do with Christ coming into the world, how we are to be open to the grace, how we are to be open to the many different ways that Christ left us to be closer and to regain back the position and the closeness and the friendship that we had with God from the very beginning. So that's going to be the focus, and I think that's the focus of most of the retreats, but especially during Lent, back again to a desert, away from all these things of the world that take us away from who we are. So that's going to be like the main focus of the retreat.
What are some practical suggestions do you have that people, I know the typical stuff that we say, but is there anything that maybe has worked for you in your faith during Lent?
Of course, the Church always recommends, those 3 Lenten things that we continue to emphasize over and over again in different ways, which is almsgiving,
fasting
and
giving up.
Yeah, penance.
Right. So penance, almsgiving, and fasting, those 3 things are going to be very, very key for us, because they are almost the counterpart of the temptations of Jesus in the desert. So bringing the desert back to us is putting into practice these 3 Lenten practices, if I can say that again, in a way that would put us, get us closer to who we are again from the very beginning. People who were created in grace, in holiness, and how to regain those things. So using these 3 things, it helped us. It's going to help us to be back to who we are.
Yeah, that is good. We're going to take a little bit of a break and come back. And thank you so much, Bishop Rojas, for sharing that with us. We look forward to talking to you more, and please stay tuned.
Real men answer the call to the priesthood. Is God calling you?
I'm honored to be a priest for the Archdiocese of Chicago. I think it's great.
There's a desire to want to give back and to help and to serve those who are especially in need.
I think there's a wonderful opportunity for us to bring good news to a world that's very much in need.
When I experience through my ministry someone being brought closer to the Lord, it's an exciting, thrilling moment.
If you feel God's call to a priestly vocation, contact us at 312-751-8298 or visit our website at chicagopriest.com. John Paul II once said, "Do not be afraid. Open your heart to Christ. The deepest joy there is in life is the joy that comes from God. Jesus is the hope of the world. The people are calling. The world is calling. God is calling. Answer the call to the priesthood."
When a neighbor's cupboards are bare, we help. When our cupboards are bare, we need your help. The past few months have been the most difficult for families that come to Catholic Charities for food. Demand is up and donations are down. Help us restock our shelves so we can feed those in need this winter. Visit catholiccharities.net/food or call 312-655-7525 to find out how you can help.
And we are back, and you are listening to Echoing God's Word. We are talking to Bishop Rojas about Lent. And Bishop, can you tell us a little bit about, some tips, and especially for our listeners, especially catechists, how they can, how to deepen a relationship with God during this desert time?
Okay, I think you could almost go back to the same thing. I was trying to.
Right.
I had my notes in Spanish. I was trying to translate that into English. Because you tend to translate. How do I say ayuno? Fasting, and then you kind of help me there. I would say I would go with the same thing. Getting back. Of course, prayer. It's such an interesting nourishment for our faith, for our spiritual life. So I would encourage people to pray a little more. I know that people pray, and many people pray the Rosary and special devotions. I like to invite people to pray now with the readings, the scripture readings, especially the readings of Sundays that make it simple. People go to Mass anyway, and so they would hear those readings and to continue to reflect on the readings of Sundays as we go through the time of Lent. Those readings are, studied, and they are intentionally placed in a certain way that they will lead us into preparation of ourselves to get to the point of celebrating Easter.
Yeah, and there's so many different ways that people can do that now. Even in the car on the way to work, you can download different apps onto your smartphone that have the Bible readings now too. So I think sometimes people think that you have to do it in a conventional way, but people are busy with their lives, and there are ways to interject that quiet time by turning off the radio and listening to something different, or even just being quiet, reading the reading before you get in the car, and then thinking about it on the way down and praying about it on the way down to work if they have some sort of commute.
Well, that's for sure. I was mentioning the readings of Sundays, but that's when people go to Mass on Sunday and then take that message for the week. But that's great. Another way of reflecting and kind of deepening into what's going on those days, it's also silence. If it is not a program that is helping us to deepen more our thoughts and our spiritual life, I would say silence. Many times we have the radio on in the car all the time, and it's very, very, there's noise all over the place around us. I think it would be good to not have noise or music in the car, or even to not watch the TV that much.
You're right. Fasting from TV, fasting from the screens would be a huge thing. In fact, I'm thinking about that for my own family too. That's a great way. Thank you for sharing. I know we don't have a ton of time here, but we do want to move on to Clare as well. Could you tell us a little bit about your religious ed program and the parish and how you guys help the parishioners to observe Lent?
Of course. We call our program a family spiritual formation program, and we chose that name quite intentionally when I started. We don't believe that just knowing about your faith is enough. We have to help form our children, and that means our families, in their faith, so that the goal is for faith and life to become one, somewhat like what Bishop Rojas was saying. And so not only do we have classroom learning, which of course is important, but we try to provide experiences that allow our children and teens to enter into a relationship with God. And how we do that in Lent, the activities we have primarily are Stations of the Cross in different forms, and our sixth graders celebrate a Seder supper because they, of course, sixth grade is Old Testament curriculum, and just about every curriculum you'll find. But our kindergarten through sixth grade stations, we don't do them necessarily traditionally. We set up what I would call hands-on stations. For instance, we have a large cross that's over 6 feet tall, and when you get to the station and Simon of Cyrene helps Jesus carry his cross, we have the kids lift this cross. For the women of Jerusalem, we have a bunch of shawls, and we ask, the kids, imagine you're on the sidelines, a woman kind of invisible behind your shawl, watching Jesus walk by. How does that feel? Where are you in the story of Mary seeing her son? So we invite them at that age to really see themselves as participants in the story, watching Jesus, connecting to Jesus' message, how they would feel.
Wow, that is great experiential learning. That's perfect.
Well, the students really respond. And because, we know statistically, I won't speak for St. Paul's, I don't know, but I know archdiocesan-wide, we're told approximately a third of our families attend Mass regularly. Yes. So how do they know the story? So we have to have different ways of letting them know our story, God reaching out for us, because that's always a story, God reaching out for us. And then speaking of technology, I have to share with you, because this was learning for me, I don't know if you all know what QR codes are.
Yeah.
But they're the cards that a phone can read and send you to a site. Our Laura, our 6th through 8th grade coordinator, has found a series of QR codes from St. Mary's Press, and if the 7th and 8th graders will be doing this, they will be at the stations, traditional stations in our church, and when you take your smartphone, which most of our kids have, and put it on the QR code, it will lead you to a Busted Halo site for that station.
That's great.
So they're doing that interactive media learning, which Bishop Rojas, I know you just told us to put down, but it helps them connect in a way that's real for them. And for your listeners who aren't familiar with Busted Halo, it's a group that does Catholic videos, and they have all kinds of things, the sacraments.
Yeah, it's Paulist, the Paulist fathers that put that together.
So it's another way of telling the story, but in a little bit more modern way.
Yeah. And engaging that generation, because this is how they're growing up. So for us in our Catholic faith to be engaging them in that way is wonderful.
I am, very grateful that greater minds than me have figured this out. Like, oh, wow, that's cool. I would do that. So, and then the Seder Supper has kind of grown to be we have to meet 7 times a week because we don't have a school. We have 19 rooms. Do the math. That's to fit all our kids in. It's actually 9 times a week when you count the 7th and 8th grade. So for our 6th grade, at each of their meetings, they will come into a room. It's set up as the upper room would have been. We have prayer rugs for them to sit on. And they're all given a small plate, but they've done the learning beforehand about what the different foods mean, the sweet, the bitter herbs, the lamb, the unblemished lamb. So they've done the learning.
Wow. The wonderful things that we are happening in St. Paul the Apostles. And at the same time, I would like to say just the relationship that you are saying about connected to the children, your experience, and especially your passion. But at the same time, thank you even for sharing with us. And we will take another break, and we are be back, and so please stay tuned.
Thank you.
You are invited to watch The Church the Cardinal Knew this weekend on cable television. Here's host Todd Williamson.
As we celebrate the year of Sunday Mass, we'll tell you about a wonderful new teaching tool called Draw Near, a video guide to the Catholic Mass. Catholic deacons and volunteers from across the Archdiocese supply buckets of hope for hurricane victims on the East Coast. We'll talk about the annual Catholic Appeal with Cardinal George.
For several interesting stories about the Archdiocese, please watch The Church, the Cardinal, and You this weekend on cable television. Go to www.archchicago.org and click on Radio TV for the time and cable channel in your area. That's www.archchicago.org. The Church, the Cardinal, and You. Compelling television about your Archdiocese.
The Catholic New World has been your faith resource for well over a century. Archbishop Patrick Feehan recognized the need for a strong Catholic voice in 1892 and launched Chicago's first Catholic newspaper. Bishop Feehan named our Catholic newspaper using a theme from the Columbian Exposition, the New World that gave people hope for a brighter future.
120 years later, the Catholic New World is bolder and better than ever. It's a rich and diverse resource for Catholics with stories of faith, hope, and inspiration. Cardinal Francis George and our team of columnists offer compelling insights on spirituality, catechesis, and evangelization.
Look for our new e-edition at CatholicNewWorld.com. Easy access, simple to use, searchable and shareable, and free for a limited time. While you're there, subscribe or call 312-534-7777.
Our look has changed, but we are still your faith resource. Subscribe now to the Catholic New World.
And we are back with Bishop Rojas and Clare Poupard. And Clare, I just want to come back to you because we had to take a break, but you were telling us about the Seder. Could you finish telling that?
Of course. I guess what I wanted to get to was the aha moment, which all good catechist teachers and parents love.
Yes.
After the Seder meal is finished, and they assign parts as one would at a Seder meal, who's the oldest son, who's the father, and they go through the ritual of the Seder meal. And when it's finished, they set the Eucharistic table, the altar behind where the Seder meal has taken place. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you're lucky enough to see the connection being made.
Yeah.
I get it. That's why we do what we do.
Yeah, and it's so different than just saying it, to actually experience it and understand it in that way. That's perfect.
Exactly. So it's wonderful when you can have those moments. I get it. That's why we do what we do. And I would also say, as far as the stations go, with the younger kids, as I said, we try and ask them to enter the story. And it's not till we get to the older kids, our high schoolers, that we get into the notion of the sacrifice, the sacrificial giving of Jesus, and what does that call us to. When they do the stations, they also enact the stations themselves. So I have to throw in service, Operation Rice Bowl, Deacon Mike. We do our Operation Rice Bowl, too, which is a wonderful teaching moment for us in terms of what fasting means. Mm-hmm. Not just giving up, but making room for God. Bishop Rojas was saying stillness. In whatever you give up, find some stillness to make room for God.
That's perfect. I love the blending of teaching about the faith, but also the experiential, because that's what they're going to remember. They'll remember that Seder meal, and they'll remember how they understood it in a different way, too.
We hope.
Right.
Okay, and Bishop, can you tell us about the last thoughts about Lent and how we're going to be living to 2013?
This year, the Pope, the Holy Father, Benedict XVI, has dedicated it to the faith. So this is the year of faith. I think that's another one of those opportunities for us to relive who we are as Christian Catholics. And also, in the Archdiocese of Chicago, we have dedicated the year to the Eucharist. And so we have these two wonderful things that we cannot have one without the other. So the Eucharist and the year of faith are going to be just two wonderful moments or topics to focus ourselves on. And I think this Lenten time is going to be perfect to reflect once again who we are. And in the end, we are one community or one body, as I always say many times, as different as we might be, we become one in the Eucharist. So the year of the Eucharist for the Archdiocese has been a wonderful gift to feel ourselves connected once again, not only with one another, but especially with Christ, which is the center and the focus of our lives.
Yeah, and maybe encouraging families because, Mass attendance has been down, encouraging families during this Lent to attend Mass together, to experience the Eucharist, to experience that quiet time as a family, too, and to reignite our faith.
That's right. And just like the name of your program, you're echoing God's Word, the echo of the Word is not only once, we hear the echo 1, 2, or 3 times, how...
Right.
So I just love the title because I think we have to bring it over and over again to repeat it as many times as possible. I know sometimes you may think, well, here I am with the same story. Well, until we really get it and, feel more into what we are supposed to be as Christian Catholics. I was talking at the beginning about, kind of bringing us back to who we are from the beginning because we were created in the image and likeness of God, and evil was not part of us, not supposed to be part of us. So, as we repeat it, the more we repeat it, the more we do it, the more we say it, I think the better.
Right, and we received it at different times in our lives, too, differently. We can hear the same message, but hear it differently at 14 than what we hear at 20, than what we hear at 25. So, that is the beauty of our faith and the readings and the repetition is that you're moving, you're constantly changing. So, you really do receive these in a different way. Well, it has been a joy to have both of you on the show this morning. Lent is such a beautiful opportunity to focus on our relationship with Jesus, and just hearing your stories, Clare, about how your parish engages, and also Bishop Rojas with how you'll engage the catechists at the Lenten retreat too. These are wonderful opportunities to participate and get closer to God as a community. So thank you for your work, and thank you for being with us this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting us, and thank you for your patience also in trying to get connected.
Oh, no, you did
No,
great.
not at all. Well, I also want to highlight a few more events that are coming up in our office. The Theological Intensive will be held on May 31st and June 1st at the Bellarmine Retreat House in Barrington. The theme this year is We Have Recognized Him in the Breaking of the Bread, and Father Lou Camelli, who was on our program last month, will be the presenter for that. Also, the Elementary Religion Curriculum Workshop in English will be offered on April 17th in the evening from 5:30 to 9, and that's for all catechetical leaders, teachers in the Catholic school, and principals.
And at the same time, a month before, that is going to be on March 16, we're going to have the Elementary Curriculum Workshop in Spanish. That is going to be for catechetical leaders, some catechists, teachers, principals, and pastors. It's going to be at some Basil Visitation in Garfield Boulevard.
Right. And also we want you to save the date for World Youth Day Chicago, even though it's going to be World Youth Day will be in Rio and not all of us can attend Rio. But here we'll celebrate in Chicago, and that will be Saturday, July 27th. So look for more details on that. Also, just to remind you, too, for more information on these events and other events that are going on in the office, please visit our website at www.catechesis-chicago.org.
And again, we want to thank Bishop Alberto Rojas and Clare Poupard for being with us this morning. Please join us next month when we talk about Easter with Father Jim Malcolm. Thanks for listening, and God bless.